Okay, so we've opened up the Students Value tab, and now we're able to go ahead and build our histogram, look at how our opinion of value compares to the comparable market segment, in particular the mean of the comparable market segment. So let's go ahead and do that now. Browse, import the file with no listings data, and then put in our opinion of value. Let's just say it's $230,000. Maximize the screen, and you can see that the blue line is the opinion of value and the red line is the mean of the comparable market segment. So the opinion of value is within one standard deviation from the mean. And this is part of the reliability score. What this does is it shows how reliable, this is one factor that considers how reliable the appraisal results are at the end of the appraisal assignment, because you want to make sure that the intended user understands the qualifying statements behind your appraisal. Just because you've developed an opinion and you put an opinion of value down doesn't mean that you don't need to talk about how much data you had, how relevant the data was to the subject property when comparing it for comparables or market conditions for the subject property, the location for the property. There's a lot of information. We're going to start going into some of this in regards to the application. So reliability one, the opinion of value is within one standard deviation. So I go ahead and I select that. And then we talk about the number of comparable sales that we used. One or fewer, three comparable sales available, three comparable sales available, five available. There were numerous and or the best available comparable sales were able to be used. There's a number of options here. This here we're talking about extraordinary assumptions. If an extraordinary assumption was found to be false, how much would that influence the opinion of value? Market trends. So reliability is strongly related to market trends. We develop an opinion of value with an effective date, and that opinion of value is tied to that effective date. But markets are always changing. Why is it that an appraiser develops an opinion for only that day and then they close a loan, but the loan's for a 15 years or 30-year term? That's an important factor for the intended user. So they need to understand how rates are increasing or decreasing. And these ratings, 1 through 5, for each one of these factors are just to show that the reader needs to maybe take a closer look at the rating. A rating of 1 is lower and a rating of 5 is higher. Current trends are increasing or decreasing at a strong rate. Current trends are stable with little no fluctuations. That's the best one. And current market trends indicate a strong decline. The intended user typically would want to know and be very well aware that market trends are declining. Of course, there's a market conditions addendum you probably have in your appraisal report, but this is just refining that and putting that into your total overall risk, reliability, validity, and credibility scoring. So we're going to go ahead and put increasing at a strong rate. And then the subject property is, we're talking about the highest and best use. This is important for the intended user generally. They want to know if the property use is going to change. Should the lot become a commercial property? Is the property better off being a vacant land? There's a ton of different issues here. We're just going to go ahead and select the highest rating. This property doesn't exist that we're talking about, but just for example. Validity. This is a big one. So what we've done here is we go through the different approaches to value and we rate different factors that influence that sales comparison approach in regards to its validity, or the validity of the cost approach or the income approach. And there's a bunch of different ratings here. First one, we would be talking about the number of data points that we would have and everything typically we would need for such an assignment of each data point. How similar or different the comparable sales that were able to be used, how similar are they to the subject property, the number of sales that we were able to use. That's an important qualifying statement that you want to be able to have in your appraisal results, because the intended user needs to know how many sales were there, how many comparable sales are there, Should there be more? Was there enough? How do they compare to the subject property? These are very important, and it's not enough to be able to just develop an opinion of value. I'm going to try and reinforce that as much as I can. Reliability and validity of an appraisal is not necessarily the appraisal's fault, whether the appraiser's fault, whether they are not all five ratings. There's some ones out there, and that's because there's a lack of data, or the quality of the data, or the data does not compare to the subject property well. So SCA4, we're talking about how the comparable sales compare to the subject property. Limited differences, a lot of differences. And these are all objective statements that as best I could developing them. Multiple linear regressions, adequate support using significant factors of value. There's a lack of measurable evidence. So in this statement, which is important, and there is, I have seen very few observations of this in any appraisal assignment, is how you are supporting your adjustments, qualifying that support. Was it a weak support that you were able to develop that adjustment and still used anyway because there was no other option? Or did you have very good evidence for that support? This goes back to the MMA series and talking about how you have to have evidence for your adjustments, saving that evidence to your digital work file and analyzing it well. Well, now we're reconciling it and we're creating qualifying statements for that evidence and making those adjustments with that evidence, with knowledge that we've procured from information and data. And we're able to make these statements to make sure that the intended user knows how valid it is. They should be able to make the judgment on whether a conclusion and opinion suits their intended use and their need. If they don't want to close the loan because there was a lack of evidence that they find qualifies for their intended use, they should be able to do so. It shouldn't be, well, the appraiser used multiple linear regression modeling in the analysis to identify a $35 per square foot adjustment for gross living area, hypothetically. And that's it. There's nothing else. There's no qualifying statement. That's not good enough. Appraisers can do a lot more. I'm developing this for other appraisers, but I use it for myself every day. I'd love to see more people use it. Let's see. Let's choose one of these. SCA6. There's a good amount of data available to support a market condition adjustment. So I'm qualifying the data for what I use to develop my market condition conclusions. My adjustment per day or period, or whether the market conditions were stable, increasing at a rapid rate, or declining, whatever it may be. And here is these adjustments are derived based on simple summary statistics. So these are about other physical characteristics that you're not necessarily able to use linear regression modeling. And SCA8 is talking about few comparable listings. So the number of comparable listings available, the ability to apply the principle of substitution to listings in the market and your comparable market segment. Really important information. The ability to be able to do that is greatly reflects your comparable sales and your need for adjustments relative to your listings and the amount of inventory that you have in your market. Now we've gone through SEA, the sales comparison approach. We're going to go through the cost approach. I've only had 4 segments here, as well as in the income approach. There is a lot less applicability in my neighborhoods, in my market areas, for the second 2 approaches. I still perform them because they do give important information, but it's not necessarily as valid to the intended user for their use due to a number of reasons. Some evidence of cost data is available. There is strong evidence of cost data with some new construction data points. Moderate evidence of land value is available with evidence of cost data, and very strong evidence of land value. So one of the things that's really important when you have these statements that are relatively grading is you give the full list of ratings 1 through 5 to the intended user so they know which one you chose. That gives them the ability to know how you're rating your evidence and how applicable it is to their intended use. At least two cost estimates were available, more cost estimates. At least one of these cost estimates were new construction. So there's lots of information in each one of these ratings. This one's talking about the lot value and the ability to develop a clear value for the lot, the developed cost approach, and that is very similar in regards to income. The number of data points available, the number of rentals available, the number of gross rent multiplier information that's actually available. My point to you is create your own qualifying statements or use these, whichever you'd like, and make sure that you're including them in your appraisal. Risk and reliability, same thing. We're talking about the subject property and is it in good condition, average condition, poor condition. The ratings change for that. And this is for the inspection type, whether it was not inspected by a third party. So if you're performing desktop appraisals, the new desktop appraisals, this is really important for you. You need to create qualifying statements. You need to talk about what's going on in the evidence, the data that was presented to you by a third party. How credible is that evidence? What is the weaknesses in that evidence? Do you need more thorough inspection in that evidence to develop a credible opinion? Or have you used the data that's available and that's influenced the reliability and credibility of your value conclusion? If it's affected your credibility of your value conclusion, you probably shouldn't develop it. But it gives some context to an intended user of your appraisal results, and that's what's important. Then we have credibility, which is weighed the least in our analysis for SOV scoring because it relates to licensing. So here's our SOV scores, and here's the SOV printout, and you can actually print this out as a PDF. My report.pdf. Let me just show you what that looks like real quick. So here's our risk and reliability support. Here's our risk and reliability report. We have the histogram, our opinion of value is stated on there. It talks about how our opinion of value compares to the rest of the comparable market segment. And then we have our different ratings, and it talks about the different categories and how they apply in the overall score. And here's the different ratings that we used. And I use these in every one of my appraisals. I find it invaluable to be able to limit the liability for myself as an appraiser by qualifying my appraisal results with reliability and validity, risk, and credibility. If you've gotten nothing from this video, please understand qualifying statements are incredibly important. They are currently supported by uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, and they are also something that Fannie Mae and the other GSEs actually want in our appraisal assignments. And we need to start putting that information in. I see a severe lack of it, and I hope that message gets across in this video. Thanks for watching.